AMUN, America's Motto United Nations, que é vinculado ao Instituto de Relações Internacionais da Universidade de Brasília. O AMUN Kit surgiu em 2005 com o propósito de levar os preceitos das Nações Unidas, como tolerância, solidariedade, para regiões mais carentes e crianças dessas regiões, as escolas públicas do Distrito Federal. O contato com o professor, assim, direto, é mais dentro da sala de aula. A coordenação, ela propõe um momento, ela propõe esse horário livre, eles não nos limitam no que tange ao tema, eles deixam o AMUN Kids bem aberto para lidar com os nossos temas. A gente sempre tem um contato anterior para mostrar, olha, a gente vai tratar isso, vai tratar a intolerância, vai tratar a questão religiosa, como é na escola. E até hoje a gente não sofreu nenhuma interferência nesse ponto. E as professoras costumam participar das dinâmicas com os voluntários, ajudando os voluntários a coordenar as salas, porque não é muito fácil durante as horas, mas não tem uma interferência, nenhuma influência tão incisiva no programa do projeto, é mais uma cooperação mesmo. Para lidar com crianças é sempre bom lidar com cores, a gente sempre utiliza muito de desenhos, utiliza de brincadeiras, cartazes que eles possam desenhar o que eles aprenderam durante a AMUN Kids, algumas danças, brincadeiras cotidianas que mostram como a cooperação entre eles, amigos, pode ajudar a melhorar o mundo. Esse semestre nós tivemos, além da coordenação, 24 voluntários.
No primeiro dia do projeto eu fiquei muito nervoso porque eu não sabia se eu tinha jeito para ensinar as crianças e eu acabei me surpreendendo porque elas ajudam muito a gente a conduzir os trabalhos e elas têm muita vontade de aprender, tipo, coisas novas. A gente está realmente estudando para fazer diferença na sociedade.
Thank you very much. Actually, youth is like a breath of fresh air. We learn a lot when we become next to them. I learned today that we will put the video at the end so that stopwatch will not bother them. He's very smart. Thank you very much. Now, let me introduce Professor Kenneth Wilson. He is the advisor of Ministry of Culture and Youth and the Community Development in the UAE. Don't look for the spots of the white hair. He dyed specially in order to, to match me.
My dear friend, that's right. I thought I'd begin with a word, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Who in the room recognizes that word? See, there are some young people as young as me. I'm reminded of that word by a magazine that I picked up at the supermarket yesterday when I was checking out. And on the front cover was Dick Van Dyke, forever young at 90. Now, he was a very famous actor and performer on the stage and had a wonderful TV show with a woman, and it was called Bewitched. But beyond that, he was in Mary Poppins, this wonderful movie, and he sang a song where that word was in it. Now, I'm forever young at 63 because I still work with young people, and it's wonderful to share this podium with this group of young people here today and hear these wonderful stories. I came to the UAE from Australia in 2004 for a 3-year experiment. I thought I was coming here to help build research capacity at Zayed University. And I did that for a little while, and then Sheikh Nayan took me under his wing in 2008 and said, come and help me do this, come and help me do that. And so most recently, for the last 2 years, he asked me to help develop a youth empowerment strategy for the United Arab Emirates. And so that's what I did for 2 years. It was it's forever kept me young at 63, if you like. I think I'm younger now than I was then 2 years ago when we began. So I thought I would give you a boring presentation about the Youth Empowerment Strategy and what we did over that 2-year period, but I think I'll dispense with my presentation and just go to a few of the highlights. First of all, if we go to a slide that I think is a fairly common slide that affects all young people in the world. So perhaps if we... Do I have to do this, do I? Here we go. This slide here, I think, summarizes the common journey that young people throughout the world have to make at a critical period in their lives. And it involves the journey where you have these several transition points. You start off, and in the UAE we've chosen as the definition of youth, the age category 15 to 34. Now, why did we choose that age category? It seemed like a good idea at the time. There is no such thing as an agreed definition of youth. It's meant to capture these key transition points that make sense in a particular place at a particular time. So if we look at Malaysia, for example, they define youth to be between 12 and 40. And that makes sense for them to do that. The UN defines it between 15 and 24. But they came up with that definition about 40 years ago. So in the case of the UAE, after a lot of consultation, we decided this was a pretty good age category to use because it captures these key transition points. And the ages vary from country to country, but essentially you have these big challenges that young people face, where they go on a journey where they are dependent, they're members of families, they're dependent on their extended relationships and their peers, and then they go through this journey where hopefully we end up with independent, contributing, well-developed, well-balanced human beings that we can then let loose on the world and replace us as the major decision makers looking after the well-being of the rest of the population. So the transition points are captured in this little simple diagram. You have to make a decision about what do you do when you leave school. What sort of post-school education experience or training or whatever. You then spend some time there, they help you grow up. Then you enter the workforce, and you have to make choices about what sort of job you'd like to aspire to have. What's your career going to look like when you know nothing about what the workplace is really like? But hopefully you're prepared during your higher education or your initial workforce training to understand that you need to be a lifelong learner. And then you go through this phase of becoming independent and starting having your own families, etc. So when we set out to develop the Youth Empowerment Strategy for the UAE, this was the journey that we wanted to make sure that the strategy encompassed. And for convenience, we broke it into these 4 different periods, which captured 5 years at a time. And like all youth empowerment strategies, it's meant to be informed by the young people who are going to be, if you like, the beneficiaries of the strategy, but also it's meant to inform the decision makers and the leaders and the rulers about this journey so that they understand what all the issues are. Now in the UAE, we have a major youth population bulge. There's been some reference to the population of the UAE. The UAE is a very unusual country where the citizens are a tiny minority in their own place. They build a country and a society which is many, many times bigger than is needed to actually employ usefully their own citizens. So, by the way, all data here is a state secret. You're never meant to know what the numbers are. So I'm amongst friends and I'll reveal a few data that are well-hidden secrets. There are around about 1.17 million Emiratis in this country, and there's been reference to about 9 million in the total population. It's probably closer to 10 million at the moment, but it fluctuates up and down on the basis of the way the visa system is used to control the total population. But that means that Emiratis are around about 15% of their own, the total population of the country, which is surprising for many people. The second interesting fact is that the population distribution is very unbalanced. So we've got this big bulk of young people, 40% roughly in the age category 15 to 34. So it's important that there is a strategy that is coherent and understood, but well informed by the young people themselves. So in developing our strategy, we basically said, okay, we want this to be an empowerment strategy. Well, what does empowerment mean? So we looked around at best practice youth strategies around the world, and we thought, well, we better come up with our own definitions for what we think makes sense here. And we came up with these 5 ideas, if you like. Engage national youth, encourage national pride, enhance economic empowerment, enable happier lives, and encourage youth voice. In other words, make sure that the young people themselves are involved in the whole process in this journey in development of the policies. Now, I should emphasize that what we did in developing this strategy was that we got international experts in to help us, what should a youth strategy look like? Because it's a safe thing to do. No one ever got fired for buying an IBM computer when they were the director of IT. In this country, no one ever gets fired if you bring in international experts to advise you on how to make a youth strategy. So after that initial experience with these experts, we sent them home and we decided, well, we would do it our own way. And the first thing we did was we went out and recruited 100 UAE national young people from all across the country. And this was one of the most interesting and exciting experiences of their lives and our lives. Because in the UAE, people tend to think of themselves in terms of their family, their tribe, their emirate, and perhaps their country. But the idea of a country here is not the same as it is in many other places. It's a federation. It's the United Arab Emirates, often described as united in name only, because people think about where they're from and their own location. Now what we did was we brought them all together, and initially we had them in teams based on their emirates. But then we put them through an exercise where we said, look, we want you to identify the issues, the problems, the challenges that you feel most passionate about. So when we did that, we broke them up into different groups. So we put people from the Northern Emirates with people from Abu Dhabi, we put people from Dubai with people from Fujairah, etc. And they created, I'll promise to take only one more minute, and they created their own work teams. They then engaged with their own peers from across the country. They used social media. They used all these exciting new tools that most old people like me know nothing about. And at the end of the exercise, they came up with these 9 major proposals that they felt passionate about, that they wanted us to make sure went into the strategy and would be implemented by the rulers and leaders. Now, I'm pleased to say that some of those will come to life very, very soon. I can't reveal what they are because our strategy went before the government only last week, and it's with the senior sheikhs in the country, and there'll be decisions made in coming periods about that. But the most important lesson to come out of this whole exercise was that once you put young people together and you unleash that energy, that enthusiasm, that capacity, it's a bit like scrambling an egg. You can't put it back together, and there are unintended consequences. And what we learned from this exercise was that we thought, well, thanks for doing those passion projects and identifying. Now we want to put you back into your regional groups. And they resisted. They said, no. We're part of a national organisation, if you like. We are volunteers contributing our time to build this strategy. We've now built our relationships with our peers, if you like, from outside our own home emirates, our own tribes, and we want to stick with those teams. We're not going back together into our emirate-based teams. So that's probably the lesson I'll finish on, because it shows you how it's consistent with the themes of today. You can build harmonious relationships when you allow people the opportunity to go beyond what they're comfortable doing. And once you do that, there are unintended and virtuous consequences. So I would like to stop on that note. Thank my dear friend Ashai for being the bookend. We're the 2 old guys at the end. Thanks, Surrender, for this wonderful day. It's been outstanding. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. You can have those just one more thank you. I would sincerely like to thank you, the translators, because I'm the last different accent for the day. I mean, what a challenge. All these interesting accents of English. We're all speaking the same language and none of us understand what we're saying. And the poor old translators have to do the job of putting it into Arabic, so thank you very much.